Hello, welcome to the Analyst Inside Cricket with me, Simon Hughes.
And I'm Simon Mann.
It's the 7th of April 2026, the day that humans have gone further into space than ever before. And also, from the sublime to the ridiculous, looking back at the first round of county championship matches, which of those players has gone beyond what they've ever achieved before in those first few games? I mean, Matt Critchley, I suppose, Simon, for one. 173 for Essex and 5 for 9 in that total demolition of Hampshire at the Utilita Bowl. He's won. Amelia Gay, I mean, you'd nominated him as someone who might star this season, and he made a brilliant 100 for Durham. Who else would you highlight, perhaps has gone beyond what they've achieved before?
Well, first things first, Yoz. Interesting segue from space to the county
I did
championships.
say from the sublime to the ridiculous.
So well done on that. Well, there were lots of standout performances, weren't there? I mean, Jimmy Anderson, 8 wickets. Mason Crane, we talk about spinners bowling at the start of the season, picked up 8 wickets for Glamorgan. Loads of hundreds, a double hundred as well for another Anderson, Martin Anderson, making a double. Some and the weather sort of generally played ball as well. There were some shots of around the country of people sort of huddled up, hats on and coats and everything like that. So not entirely the weather for cricket, although of course perversely today is the weather for cricket. It's absolutely gorgeous day in London. It's going to be another gorgeous day tomorrow. And then when the next round of matches start, I think it goes back to about 12, 13 degrees again, perhaps some rain around. But that is the nature of the English climate. And yours, and I think this is perhaps where we should start, unless you want to start at Lords, where there was a less
I
than
think we better draw a veil over that from your point of view.
let's just start. I mean, a less than glorious performance from Gloucestershire. I did watch quite a lot of that game, and some of Gloucestershire's batting was appalling. Some of their shot making was appalling. They did try to tough it out. They batted a lot of overs in first and second innings ultimately, but I mean, some of their shots, oh, goodness me. Anyway, yeah, not a great start for them. But let's start. I think we should start with, I suppose, the winners from this round of matches, or what have we learned from this round of matches? And we should perhaps focus. First things first, we should focus on Jamie Smith. Should we making 100 at number 3 for Surrey? Now, do we read anything into that? Because normally it's been Pope at 3 for Surrey, and this time Pope batted at 4, and Smith batting at 4, and they switched it round.
What are you
What
insinuating? That England have sent Surrey a message saying, we think maybe Jamie Smith could be our next number 3. What does that mean for Jacob Bethel, who, by the way, hasn't batted since his brilliant 100 in that T20 World Cup semi-final in Mumbai? He hasn't played for the Royal Challengers Bangalore in the IPL yet. So again, he's warming the bench. While other teammates or colleagues play on the field, but he's the guy that England have earmarked at number 3, and understandably so, and brilliantly he played in that Sydney Test match. So Smith at number 3 for Surrey. What does that mean? I suppose it just means I would just take it as Surrey think he's a worthy number 3, and perhaps he deserves a chance. I think he batted at 4 for most of last year, and they feel he's earned the right to bat at 3, and Pope demoted to 4. Perhaps Pope would prefer to bat at 4. I mean, who knows, really? He played well, though, didn't he? I mean, I thought, sort of watching him, I thought he started poorly. He looked very tentative, even though it was a reasonable opening partnership by Surrey before he came in their second innings. I don't know, he looked still very edgy against the sort of seaming ball, pitched up, didn't really get his foot right, got a couple of slightly lucky edges through the slips, played and missed a bit. Didn't look. I just feel he's so vulnerable to a moving ball. I would not have him at number 3 in a Test match. Facing the likes of, say, New Zealanders, Matt Henry, for instance, who nips it around, makes it move about, almost has it on a string. I would really worry for Jamie Smith against the Duke ball when it's new, because he just leaves that big gap between bat and pad. He uses his hands. He's a lovely player. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but technically he looks flawed, top of the order, if the ball's newish.
It does seem weird, doesn't it? That he bats 3 for his county, or now he's now batting at number 3 for his county, and he's not keeping wicket. And then when he comes and play for England, he bats at 7 and keeps wicket. It's so bizarre, really.
Yeah.
So the only thing I was thinking, look, I think you kind of dealt with it in a way, whether we're all looking to England this summer and thinking, well, who's going to open the batting? Is it going to be Duckett and Crawley? And we feel that Crawley's under pressure. Of course, a couple of failures, LBW twice to Matt Potts in Kent's match against Durham. We all think there's probably going to be a change at the top of the order. Probably, we don't know yet. And so, could Bethel open, Smith at 3, and Rue have the gloves and bat at number 7? Say, is that a ridiculous notion?
I mean, no, I don't think it is. And I think Bethel could definitely open because he has the method. He has the ability. I mean, we've seen him bat in the top order for England already and coming in early when the ball is nipping around, and he handles that really well. He has a competent technique again. I mean, that's why people have gone, overboard over him in a way, because not only has he got incredible repertoire of shots, but he has got a good technique. He plays it late. He moves his feet into position, head position, great positions, great balance, transfer of weight. He can put the bad ball away. He can also shoulder arms. He's got all the kind of game ingredients to be able to be a top order player. And look, if you can bat at number 3 in Test cricket, you can open as well. I know that opening is a specialist position, but I mean, look, Jonathan Trott, he batted at 3, and then when he came back into the England side, he tried opening. That wasn't a success, but Joe Root has opened and batted at 3. So, those top 3 spots are sort of interchangeable, I think. And if Bethel could bat at 3, he could definitely open.
But do you think it's something that they might think about?
Yeah, I think they would think about it. I mean, why not? And I suppose, as Rob Key and others have said, these first 6 or 7 championship matches are a great opportunity for someone to put their hand up and say, I should be the man to open for England. And so far, only obviously one game down, but so far no one has, have they? None of the sort of obvious candidates. Obviously Crawley, you mentioned already, has failed 4 times now in both in championship and the pre-season warm-up matches. He's been LBW every time, and he looks terrible. But Asia Try was been mentioned, didn't particularly do well in that Glamorgan match. Dom Sibley and Hazib Hamid both got in their 20s, but nothing special. So no one yet has absolutely said, pick me, but plenty of time to go.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very early days. Although you could argue Jamie Smith has said pick me because he batted for 261 balls, made 132 in a situation where Surrey were under some pressure in that game, albeit on a pretty good batting pitch. I think we worked out that after Surrey were 60 for 6 in their first innings on the first morning, the next 18 wickets in the game fell for well over 1,000 runs at 70 runs per wicket. So I mean, it did become much easier to bat, I think is fair to say. But he ground out 100, didn't he? So at number 3, and you think of some of those dismissals in the wind time. It wasn't just one shot; it was more than one shot. I think of Perth actually. When he was caught on the deep square leg boundary in the first innings, end of the first innings. Okay, England were coming towards the end of their innings, but it didn't look a percentage shot. There was the one in Adelaide. There was the one at the SCG, and here he really knuckled down. He had a bit of luck, didn't he? He was a couple of very near dismissals on the fourth day. I think there was one at low down at cover where he could have been taken. There was one at the slips as well. But 132. So yeah, first game of the season, batting number 332, 261 balls. That's fair play, isn't it? So anyway, it does. It is a bit like sort of moving the deck chairs around. Rue, do they want to get him in the side? Well, he's had a very successful time of it. Another 100 for Somerset in their game against Nottinghamshire. He is a player that clearly is in the thoughts because he has been called up before. So, and he does keep wicket. I mean, at least he has the benefit of keeping wicket.
Yeah,
for
no, and I think
his
that's a good
county.
point. No, I think that's a fair point. And again, we're seeing Smith not keeping for Surrey, which I mean is understandable because Ben Folkes is there. And he, by the way, he got 100 in the first innings, didn't he, for Surrey? He helped Surrey kind of bail out from that
Yeah.
67, 65 for 6 position, him and Tom Laws. So, still Smith is not keeping for Surrey. And lots of pundits have said, how can you have someone not keeping for their county, keeping for England? Well, I agree with that. It's mad, really. And we must get Matt Pryor on. I kept promising Matt Pryor to come on, and he's been moving house and disappeared into the ether of deepest Sussex. So no communication from Matt. But we must get him on because I'd love to hear his view about can you keep for England and not for your county. We'll find out, but it does seem odd. And James Rew is an obvious solution to that. As someone who could definitely bat at 7, I think also the fact he's left-handed is again an advantage. Yeah. So and Smith perhaps plays as a batter for England. I mean, he's good enough.
Well, if he does play as a batter, you'd think he would have to bat at
Yeah.
number 3, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless Harry Brook goes to 3 and Jamie Smith goes to 5. And that's the other way of
Yeah.
doing
That
it.
could work.
Root's locked in at 4. I think Duckett, if he gets runs in, when he starts playing, I think he's worth persevering with at the top of the
Yeah.
order. I mean, he's had
Yeah.
a
I
pretty
agree.
thin. He has had a thin time of it recently, last
Yeah.
sort of few months. He's got enough credit in the bank, I
He
think.
has. I agree. I mean, the thing about someone like Duckett is he will definitely be going through this process now of how am I going to play in the future? Because, for a couple of years, 2, 3 years, he's had a lot of success and became famous for not leaving the ball, didn't he? And, a leave from Ben Duckett is as rare as a 4-leaf clover kind of thing. And, but he survived, he survived and he played well and he had success with that method. Then he got found out in Australia and not leaving the ball, playing at it, getting caught behind a few times, similar sort of dismissals. Now he'll be thinking, you know, teams are going to target me there. And it is my strength and my weakness, that sort of shortish, slightly short of a length ball roundabout off stump just outside, where he's been able to score off it in the past, but now he's got out a few times trying to run it to third man or, knock it into the offside. So now he'll be thinking, can I afford to play that way, or do I need to be a bit more selective? Do I need to leave more balls? So, it's that sort of stick or twist kind of dilemma he'll be in at the moment. It'd be interesting to see when he comes back for Notts eventually in the next couple of weeks, how he plays.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's going to be under scrutiny, isn't he? If he gets no runs at all, then you think, well, if Rob Key is true to what he said about
Mm.
county cricket making a difference to selection, and obviously some past performances as well, recent past performances, then you might have to make a change at the top of the order. I mean, when I watch, I know you're committed to playing, but when I watched Ben Duckett's dismissal in Adelaide just before lunch in that key Test match where England ended up losing the Ashes, I just could not see what the percentage was in playing at that ball outside the off stump in that last over before lunch, and he nicked it, and I just thought, I cannot, surely you have to be able to adjust, and this was, I think, one of the issues with England in Australia at times, is just being a bit cannier, really, and
Mm.
I
Yeah.
mean, not a bit cannier, a lot cannier, and so yeah, that will be, that will be the test for him. You do have to, I mean, sometimes you do have to leave the ball because you can't score. You can't score. It's only going to get you into trouble.
Well, and
So
also, I think one of the things that Ben Stokes pointed out, which was fairly obvious, was that teams had figured out how to play England. They'd worked out a way of bowling at them, which undermined their methods. And their methods, obviously, in the early days of Bazball, was very much be aggressive, take the short ball on, don't worry about then back on the boundary, just hit it over them and all that, and hit it on the up. Teams kind of started, especially Australia, started to plug away at that sort of fourth, fifth stump line on a length with a little bit of help in the pitch. And England got found out because technically and mentally they weren't sound enough. And so England now have to have a slight rethink because teams will come back at that. You can see in the summer when the Test series start again, New Zealand, they'll put a lot of faith in the likes of Matt Henry, maybe Jacob Duffy, who'll be bowling that sort of very tight line and length with a little bit of help. with the Duke's ball, and so England will have to be technically sound to deal with that initially.
We're going to be in that strange situation again, it seems to me, with Jacob Bethell, though. I mean, you made the point that he hasn't played for RCB yet, simply because they've got, look at the balance of their side. They've got 4 overseas players that kind of fit better into how they want to play. So they've got a Tim David, who's their sort of assault weapon in the middle order. They've got Phil Salt at the top of the order, who's been good for them. Made 46 the other day in that 250. David made 70 off 25 balls. So those are the sort of 2 batting places. And then they've got 2 other overseas players. They've got Duffy, who took wickets in the opening game for them, picked up another couple, but went around the park a bit, but then it was a high-scoring game. And they got Romario Shepherd, who can bowl and bat. So you can sort of see why Bethel's struggling to get in, but unless they get injuries, you can see him not playing that much for RCB. So we're going to be in a similar situation to last season, where he's going to come in. I mean, he'll have his place in the team, but he won't have had much cricket unless they come to some sort of deal about him coming back early. But then we know what happened last season. The whole thing is that you stay out there and play, and you see out your contract. Otherwise, there are punishments for coming out your contract early. So you need to somehow get in the team and have some cricket. It's not a sort of crisis yet, but it's all brewing towards something similar to last season. And it's the nature of the modern game, I suppose. The fact that first test is buffered up against the end of the IPL. And the thing is, of course, he plays for a franchise that probably will do well again. RCB, they've made a reasonable start, so you'd think there's a good chance that they'll get to the last 4 and into the knockout stages and go a long way in the competition. The IPL finishes end of May. It's a mess. Who goes? I mean, it's not. Nothing's ever straightforward, is it? But then that's the nature of life, I suppose.
So who else do we highlight? Dan Mosley, 144 for Warwickshire, in their total of 544 against Surrey. That match, as we said, ended in a draw in the end. Surrey fighting back from a big deficit, 200 on first innings to see out the match, 447 for 4, with also Dan Lawrence getting 100, as well as Jamie Smith. And the Notts Somerset game was a bit of a stalemate. So the two sort of vying for the top spot in the championship, I suppose, Notts and Surrey after last year, both held to a draw. Notts against Somerset. Somerset just couldn't bowl Notts out in the second innings. What other games do we pick on? Essex routed Hampshire, as I mentioned, with Matt Critchley starring with bat and ball. Hampshire looked pretty ordinary, actually. Bowled out twice for under 170. Looking very patchy with the bat. They struggled with the bat last year. So I slightly worry about them. They only just survived for the relegation battle last year. I wonder if they'll be in that mix again. In the second division, I don't know if you watched, I'm sure you did, that brilliant tail-end resistance from Northants against Lancashire. Jimmy Anderson, we mentioned. Anderson's now gone to 1,151 first-class wickets, which puts him about 20 below the great I.T. Botham in terms of first-class wickets taken. He's just short, actually, of someone I played against, John Shepherd. Remember him? He played for Gloucester a bit, and also more commonly for Kent. West Indian all-rounder, lovely man. John Shepherd bowled, really good sort of tight, medium, fast, moved the ball around both ways, played some tests for West Indies. He took 1,157 test wickets, first-class wickets, and Jimmy's about 6 behind that. Amazing, really, isn't it? Jimmy, age 43. I mean, he still looks like a spring chicken. He bowled tons of overs. He got 5 in the burst innings. He was still bowling at the end of that match on the 4th day against Northants, trying to bowl them out. Amazing.
You revealed before we came on, yours. You have still taken more championship wickets though than Jimmy Anderson.
Well, yes. I mean, I didn't play 180 tests, did I? I did. Jimmy's only taken, I say only, he's taken 400 wickets for Lancashire now. He passed 400 in that game. I took 470, I think, in total in both Middlesex and Durham. I didn't get distracted by Test cricket, did I? I mean,
that's his secret.
Yeah, perhaps. But I mean, I don't think any seam bowler will ever take 1,000 first-class wickets again. I know Simon Harmer has got there in recent times, but I can't see a seam bowler getting there anymore because they just don't play enough cricket, really, do they? So Jimmy's going to be the last of a long line. Because actually, I mean, where is he in the sort of the echelons of first class bowlers? I mean, way down the list. I've got the list in front of me, and I mean, many of our listeners will already know that the leading first class wicket taker of all time, Wilfred Rhodes, 4,204 Test wickets, first class wickets. Sorry. I don't know how many matches, probably sort of 500 matches or something for Yorkshire and England. Titch Freeman was second with 3,776, and then the list goes down. But there were many bowlers who took over 2,000 wickets in that old era. But in the modern era, 1,000 wickets is absolutely fabulous performance. Anyway, I mean, we were saying the rearguard action from Northants. So George Bartlett and Ben Sanderson held out for the last 10 overs, I think, didn't they? And George Bartlett batted something like 68 overs for his 95 not out to see Northants to a very, very heroic draw.
Yeah, a pitch looked pretty benign as well
Yeah,
there at the end. They were
feather
trying
bed,
to sort
wasn't it?
yeah, it looked like it. I watched the end of that game as well. And what I liked about Bartlett is he had the chance of 100. Actually, Hartley bowled the last over and was like lobbing it right up. Go on, have a go. And he was dead batting it because it'd have been, I mean, some players, I'm sure, absolutely sure there were some players who had gone, right, I'm having a bit of this. I'm going to hit this for 6 or 4 or whatever to bring up your 100 in the last over. But when you denied yourself for so long, you can understand why he didn't. I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break. And then after the break, we'll talk about some of the surfaces that the matches were played on because anyone expected a green seamer at this stage of the season? Well, no, there weren't many of those around. So, April the 3rd, new cricket season, spectators huddled up, hats on, coats on, but the pitches were anything but what some people might consider to be early season pitches with the ball nipping here, there, and everywhere. I know it was 60 for 6, but at Edgbaston, I knew there were struggles for 1 or 2 batting sides, but actually, as it turned out, all the teams who batted first made over 300 in their first innings, which is a remarkable stat, isn't it, for a 3rd of April? But we were saying in our chat with Cam Steele just before the season started that it had been dry in the lead up to the start of the season. So presumably ground staff around the country, albeit a bit cool, were able to have proper preparation time. And perhaps it is that, first pitch of the season, you just put a bit more into. And there's also something else as well that has come out in the last few days, which is worth taking note of, is that home teams who produce below average pitches will get no points. So if you win the game, it's not like an 8-point penalty or anything like that. No points at all. So if you produced a pitch that was, that got you a 2-day win and got you the maximum points for batting, bowling, and winning the game, no points at all. So there's an incentive to produce, well, decent pitches. But what does that mean, really?
Yeah.
Does that mean though that ground staff are going to slightly err on the side of producing flatter, better batting pitches? I mean, is a below average pitch one in which both teams score 600, say? I mean, what's the
Well,
definition of
yes,
below
I
average?
definitely think that's the case, and I'm thinking back actually to last year. I was at the Utility Bowl for a match between Hampshire and Worcestershire, and Worcester, from memory, got about 650, and it caused a stand-up row between Liam Dawson, the home spinner, and the groundsman, just saying, "What are you giving me? This is just a piece of poo. I can't bowl on this. What are you trying to do?" It was so dead. I think Adam Ho's got a double hundred. It was just it was boring cricket. The bowlers had no chance, really. It was just a question of when the batsman kind of lost concentration or lost any kind of initiative or any kind of interest, really. If a batsman got bored, he eventually got out, and that was the only way you could get them out. And that was bad cricket, and therefore it was a bad pitch. I can't remember if it was actually marked down. I think it was sort of marked as sort of average or something, probably by the match referees. But what makes a good pitch, I suppose, what makes a good pitch is a little bit of help for the bowler in the early session of the first day, when I say bowler, the seamers, flat for 2 days and spin on the last. That's what you really want, isn't it? It's difficult to get that. It's so difficult to. It's such a precise art. But beginning of the season, they do have that bit of extra time. It's been dry as well, most of the country, which means they've been able to get the rolling in and get the sun, under the sun on the pitch as well, which always helps to grow strength, stronger grass and stuff. So, I mean, that's often been the case, hasn't it? That we've had big scores in the first couple of weeks of the season. Are they good pitches? Well, I mean, I didn't think that one at Northampton was good. I didn't think really that Edgbaston pitch was that good, but we didn't have good spinners bowling on those pitches, did we? Really? I mean, Tom Hartley bowled a few overs at Northampton, but he doesn't really turn the ball all that much. Warwickshire haven't really got a spinner, have they? I'm disappointed Dan Mosley doesn't bowl more. He played it for England as a sort of as a spinner in ODIs, didn't he? Sort of to specialist death bowler, bowling his flat off breaks, but didn't bowl many overs for Warwickshire in that Surrey match. I think all teams do need a good spinner, don't they? And but you can't really find out about a pitch unless they do have a good spinner.
Surely the problem is playing at this time of the year. Okay, you can have decent enough batting pitches, but you need some bounce, don't you? And it's hard
Yeah,
to get the bounce
yeah,
in. So you can have dry conditions, but can you get that real bounce into surfaces? That pace and bounce, which also helps the spin bowlers as well. They don't turn very much at this stage of the season. Although, one or two of the pitches were probably looked a bit drier than you'd normally expect at this stage of the season. I think the wind was a factor, wasn't it? It was quite very windy over the weekend, and Durham found that out, of course, because their game was delayed on Sunday after Storm Dave took down one of
yeah,
the sight screens, and spectators weren't allowed inside the ground. In fact, they lost a whole day because it was wet as well as windy. So that was unfortunate for them. They might have had a result in that game. As it turned out, there was only 3 results in all the games that were played. So Essex, Sussex, and Middlesex winning. So when I looked, I watched quite a few games, dropped in on quite a few games, and what I didn't see in any of the games was any real pace. In any real pace bowlers, and I think that's part of the problem, isn't it? Is that the way the championship season is, that it's such hard work to keep on running in and bowl quick. But if the pitches don't have a great deal of pace in them anyway, it's kind of discouraging. So, and that's part of England's problem, it seems, a little bit when they go they go perhaps to Australia, South Africa. I don't know. They've actually done quite well in South Africa on tours, but also with the lack of help for spinners when they go to India, they look a bit wanting, and the batters do as well because they haven't had that trial by spin, even in English conditions. So
yeah.
it's not easy for the ground staff, is it, when
No.
you're starting on the 3rd of
No, and
April?
it's not. And I mean, I go back to when I played, which is, I know, many moons ago, but we did have a pace bowler virtually in every team. And I bowled probably 84 miles an hour. I was in the modern era, I would probably be at the slightly quicker end of county bowlers, I would say. I'd say the average speed of county bowlers is sort of 78 to 82 sort of area. A lot of the opening bowlers probably even a bit less than that, actually. I mean, Chris Wokes, bowls probably about 79, 80 miles an hour. I would say the average speed in county cricket in the sort of 1980s and 90s would have been much higher than that because each team had one guy, at least, who could bowl 90. I'm not going to reel them all off, but I mean, many of them were West Indians, but some of them were homegrown. People like Sid Lawrence, Devon Malcolm, Chris Lewis. They were all. Greg Thomas played for Glamorgan. Graham Dilley was quick. So there was Darren Gough, obviously later. There was lots of bowlers who could bowl, 90 miles an hour roughly, and that means the pitch isn't as flat. Those bowlers can make even a flat pitch demanding to bat on. So probably the pitches were similar in those days, but the bowling was a little bit more penetrative. Now you have a lot of, I would call military medium bowlers who, are quite sort of skiddy, but nothing special in terms of pace, and therefore the pitches do look flat after the ball has lost its shine.
Look, when we went to the Oval last year to watch Josh Tunn bowl in that championship match between Nottinghamshire and Surrey, and
Yeah.
he took wickets in the game, you could see the
Yes.
difference. He really did stand out with that extra pace, and he hurried players as well. There was a play on, and that often is an indication that a lower order player had just been hurried up. So you do see it from time to time, and he is one example, but they don't look to be that many examples. And look, people say, well, actually, you go back to the winter, England and Australia. It wasn't actually England thought it was all going to be about pace, and it wasn't really, was it? It was about control, accuracy. I mean, the number of times England bowled short and wide, bang four, short and wide, cut for four, during the winter. And actually, if they'd had a bowler like Jimmy Anderson in the winter, they might have done a bit better. Someone that could control it and contain the batting side, because there was a little bit in those pitches. So look, who knows what they're going to be thrown up with in 4 years' time in Australia. But
Mm.
uh,
But does
I
this
suppose,
open the door for Ollie Robinson then, I wonder? Because, England did lack control in Australia, and they've shown a little bit of that in the India series as well. Uh, and obviously now there's no Chris Wokes and obviously no Jimmy Anderson or Stuart Broad. Ollie Robinson came back with an excellent five for Sussex in the first match of the new season. He's captain of Sussex as well, isn't he? Which is interesting. To giving him some extra responsibility. He talked about still hoping that there'll be an England call-up. Maybe we should forgive him all his indiscretions in the past, various things, fitness-wise, and one or two other things he's done. Uh, give him another chance, because he's got the credentials, the ability to be able to bowl. Not quick, is he? He's not quick, but he's got that bounce, which is so valuable in Test cricket, especially.
well, his stats are good, aren't they? He takes wickets. He takes wickets in county cricket. He took wickets in Test cricket as well. His record is a good one, but there's some kind of like a falling out, isn't there, between him and
Well, it's a
the
character thing, isn't it?
collaboration?
They
Yeah,
don't, they
yeah.
don't really trust him, I don't think, or they haven't done in the past. But maybe he can turn over a new leaf, and England can give him another go.
Well, that's the test, isn't it? Are they going to say clean slate? Look, performances. This is what we're all about now. What I would say is, I mean, I think England's bowling is they've got they've got options, but they don't look to have options. You think, yeah, that's an absolute gold standard Test performer who's going to win them Test matches consistently, or two or three of them. They're good. They're good. It's all good bowlers, but they're not. They don't look outstanding at the moment. So you're scouting around. You look at the Lions and who was playing for the Lions, and it was the same thing when I was watching the Lions play. I watched them in Canberra. It was all steady, and some of the younger bowlers. I mean, Tom Laws, for example. I mean, didn't have actually a great game with the ball, did he? He's kind of like steady paced rather than quick. I was
I'd say
watching.
he's a bit. I think he's a bit quicker than some, actually. But yeah, but carry on. Yeah.
But what would you say he bowls at?
I would say he's 86, maybe. I mean,
Really?
86, 80. Yeah. I think I've seen
Mm.
him bowl the old spell where he was quick, and he got beat batsmen for pace. Maybe slightly more lower order players, but yeah, I think he's got some pace. I reckon he's got potential, and he's tall, and obviously he can bat as well. I'm not saying that that's the only thing, but I like him actually. I think he's a speculator for wickets, but England need that person who can control the thing as well, and he's not that person, but he could be one for the future. Manny Lumsden, who Cam Steele nominated as one of the people to follow for this season, he didn't get a call up for Hampshire yet. Obviously, there's sort of school exams going on with some players, young players, still at school. So Thomas Rue, for instance, is still at school. I nominated him as someone to watch, and he's still doing his A levels, so he won't get a chance for Somerset until later in the season. So, anyway, I mean, they need to find someone, England, who can control that sort of those middle overs in Test cricket, because I don't really see Carse or Tongue being that person. They are more attacking bowlers, and they need someone to sort of hold the line in length, don't they?
Well, you need a mixture, don't you?
You need a mixture, yeah.
Yeah, you need a mixture. You need an attack that can keep a pressure on a batting side, but also you just need that extra bit of quality as well. And often it comes with that just extra bit of pace. So you need what's an ideal Test match bowler? Someone who's either quick or can bowl 86, 87, and can do a little bit with it as well. If you've got someone like that, then your quid's in. I mean, you have to be so. If you bowl at low 80s at Test level, you have to be really skillful, don't you? You're such a skillful bowler, kind of like Jimmy Anderson in a way, to have sustained success home and away. It seems to me. Anyway, that's that. So there's the question marks about the batting, but they seem to have lots of batting options. And there are bowling options, but I don't look at them. I don't get as excited by England's bowling options as I do when I look around the batting, which is a strange thing to say, I suppose, when you look at some of the shots that were played in the Ashes. And I don't think England's batting lineup is going to be radically different from their Ashes batting lineup, simply because you're going to have Bethel, Root, Brook, Stokes, for example, and I suppose the other ones are going to be who's your keeper batter, who's your opener? Who are your two openers? It's only those spots, isn't it? Really, top of the order, and perhaps you keep a batter, but then that might be Jamie Smith. But the bowling options, but are they how I don't know, how sustainable are they? How much quality, a real sort of top level Test quality, is there in the bowling? That would be my question.
Yeah. And there's 6 games or 5 games to go now before the first test. I wonder how many will play. I mean, Bryden Cast is at the IPL, so he's not going to be bowling for Durham. Mark Wood, obviously, we can write off, I think, because he's not likely to make a comeback anytime soon. So, I mean, Jofra Archer's at the IPL as well. I mean, great opportunity for someone like Josh Tongue to really cement his place. I mean, I think he's already inked in, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. I would.
Definitely.
Yeah,
But there's some
yeah.
other spots up for grabs there. Let's see who grabs it in the next 5 weeks or so. Listen, I think that's it for today. We have got a little extra interview to add on a bit later in the day to this show, because there's a new service started this summer on county cricket called Counter Press, which is a media site to supply media coverage, press coverage of all the counties. It's an independently run site by Sam Morshead, who was at the Cricketer magazine running their digital service and now has set up Counter Press on his own. So we can hear from Sam and one of his correspondents after this short break. If you're listening to this before 1 o'clock, this is the end of the show. But if you listen to it after 1 o'clock, you'll get the extra interview with Sam Morshead and one of his correspondents. And we'll be back later in the week to cover live one of the county matches in the second round of games. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought you were
just
going to
end
say
the
something there, but
recording.
no.
No, I don't need to, because you're going to go into the sound.